I'd like for you to consider a word today, and the word is growth. Again, the word is growth. Webster's dictionary defines the word growth as a stage in the process of growing. Webster's dictionary goes on to give a fuller definition of the word growth as progressive development. And we're going to come back to those definitions in a moment because there's a couple words again that are important to unpack this word growth relative to the way that we live in the world. But before I do, I'd like to share with you a couple of quotes that are in the world. And the first one comes from the Bible, and it's a little long, but stick with me because there's an important lesson in here, where it says, "A farmer went out to sow his seeds. And as he was scattering seed, some fell along the path, and birds came down and ate it up. Some fell on rocky places where it did not have much soil, and it sprang up quickly because the soil was shallow. But when the sun came out, the plants were scorched, and they withered because they had no roots. Other seed fell among the thorns, which grew up and choked the plants. Still other seed fell on good soil, where it produced a crop 160 or 30 times what was sown. Whoever has ears, let them hear." And the other quote in the world comes from an unknown source, but it's a great quote, and it says, "Growth is not for everybody. Some people just want to stay the same forever." That's so good, I'm going to read it twice. Growth is not for everybody. Some people just want to stay the same forever. And so I congratulate you for sitting in on this word growth today, because it tells me that you're not somebody that just wants to stay the same forever. And so let me share with you some insights from my experience around this word of truth called growth. And it says that it's a process. The definition from Webster says that it's a process or progressive development. And so when anything is a process, it means that you're moving from one spot to another spot. And so I think that's an important point inside of this word growth. It means that it's a process. You're moving from here to there. Hopefully you're not moving from there back to here. Hopefully you're moving in a certain direction, but it is a process, which means that there's a direction to it. Anytime you see the word process, it means that something is moving and there's a direction to it. And so that becomes important for you to recognize with this word growth is, number one, what are you growing out of, and what are you growing into? I'll repeat that. What are you growing out of, and what are you growing into? It's extremely important to question yourself, because that'll tell you the direction that you're heading. Anytime you can stop and look at what are you growing out of and what are you growing into, it'll tell you the direction that you're moving. Number one, that's extremely important. And then you have to ask yourself, is that a direction worth you traveling in? Is that a direction that's going to benefit you? Is that a direction that's going to grow you? Is that a direction that's going to increase your capacity? Is that a direction that's going to allow you to fulfill your passions and your purpose for living here? What is the direction? So what are you growing out of? What are you growing into? What is the direction? The other thing that you have to ask yourself relative to something that's moving in a direction is, what is the trajectory? Are you growing from here to there? Is it in the right direction, first of all? And if it is it going in an upward fashion? Meaning, are you getting bigger or are you getting smaller? Are you getting bigger or are you getting smaller? Some people can be heading in the right direction, but ultimately it is shrinking them in terms of who they're ultimately supposed to be. So again, I'm going to repeat that for you. As growth is a process, it means that it has directionality to it. It means that you're growing out of something and growing into something, that there is a direction. Make sure it's the right direction for you. And then make sure it has the right trajectory, or that you're moving up and building your capacity as you're growing. And so as you do that, that brings to point another great quote that most people tend to talk about, or a lot of people will share in personal development, and they'll say, well, you know what? You're either growing or you're dying. You're either growing or you're dying. It's one or the other. And in my experience, that's just not true. It's not one or the other. As a matter of fact, it's actually both. It's actually both. Because in order to grow, in my experience, some things have to die. In order to grow in your level of fitness, you have to kill off or die eating bad foods. and you have to grow in your ability to eat good foods. If you want to study, you have to kill off or die some bad habits called just sitting and watching television all day and grow in a habit of reading and absorbing and learning. And so anytime you're in a growth process, it's not you're either growing or you're dying. It's that you actually have to do both. Because in order to grow out of something and grow into something else that's going to increase your capacity, you have to die or kill off some bad desires or temptations in order to grow and realize your purpose and passion for your life. And so that's a big, big challenge, but I want you to recognize that growth is a process. You're growing out of something and into something else. There is a direction, there is a trajectory, and make sure that you recognize that in order to grow, something also has to die to replace those bad habits. And so it's an evolutionary process for you. And I hope that you continue to work on this word growth, and I hope that you take the time to ponder a couple more questions that I want to share with you. Number one, how has this word growth shaped the way that you live in the world? How has this word growth shaped the way that you live in the world? Number two, how has this word growth shaped how you build and grow your personal relationships? How has this word growth shaped the way that you build and grow your personal relationships? And then number three, how can you utilize your new awareness of this word growth to unlock some hidden capacity that's still inside of you? How could you utilize this new awareness of the word growth to unlock some hidden capacity that's still inside of you? So I challenge you today to take a look at this word growth, to recognize that it has direction, it has trajectory, and you're both growing and dying at the same time, because in order to grow, something has to die. So always ride the wave of life and always play big.